And a very pleasant Tuesday evening to everybody, and welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. Our theme for Tuesday night, as always, is sports, athletics, and tonight we have the long-time now athletic director over at Burroughs High School, Robert Campbell. And Robert has coached both boys basketball, girls basketball, and now runs all the administrative duties and coaches the coaches, so to say. And Robert, welcome again. We had you a few months ago, and how did the fall sports end up over there?
You know, fall sports, Tim, Tom, sorry, we'll get off to a little better start.
Long-time friend.
Yeah. As you can see, I'm getting older. Fall sports was interesting. We took, the ball didn't bounce our way per se. Volleyball was probably the biggest shock. In volleyball, we went 19-5 and didn't make the playoffs due to some new rules that CIF has put in for at-large bids. That was a shock. So that was interesting. We also just missed getting into cross country. CIF, we took fourth in both of those divisions, and we missed it by 1 point. Football, few plays here, a few plays there. I think we could have been in the playoffs, but that's the way it goes. So it was a tough fall for us. Tennis was the only team that made it to the playoffs, and they got into the second round, I think. And then they had a couple kids that also went to the individuals.
Right, the CIF individual tournament. You know, football was this year was an adjustment in the new Mojave River League. It turned out, even supported by statistics, to be the strongest of all of the leagues. Four of the teams from the Mojave River went into the playoffs. One of the teams, we beat Apple Valley on homecoming night here in a dramatic fashion. But Serrano had a great season. Oak Hills had a great season. And Hesperia was a big surprise. Hesperia High School in the first round went over to Riverside and took out La Sierra, who was the #1 seed from that very good division. So basically what would have happened if we would have stayed in that desert sky, we would have been the #2 team, and we would have definitely been in the playoffs. So, but you're right. There were a couple games that the Sultana game could have gone either way. I think that was a game that I think Todd and half of the county want back as far as their ability to, to perform, and falling short that night. And the other game was the Hesperia game here.
Yeah.
Back and forth. It could have gone either way. And Serrano actually got to the championship game and lost to Palm Springs, I guess, in a great nail-biter out there. So I guess generally speaking, let's just talk about fall sports first. Were the coaches pretty happy to go into that new league?
You know, we talked about that before we made our decision. They all knew that, and that was one of the big things on the board was competitiveness, and we knew that it would be much more competitive. And if you look at cross country, there were 17 kids, or no, 20 kids that ran under a 17-minute for the cross country finals in the MRL. There was 1 in the DSL.
Wow.
So that was, right there, you talk about that. That's huge. You're right, football, volleyball, we lost 2 of the 5 games in the second round. We lost, actually 3. We lost to Serrano at home, which we played very well, got beat. We went down to Apple Valley and got beat, and then we got upset by Oak Hills and Oak Hills. So we lost 3 of 5, which hurt us to get into the playoffs. With the new rule, if your bracket is filled with league teams that are already, assigned a spot, because you get so many league teams per how many leagues you have. If you have 5, you get 3. If you have 6, you get 3. If you have 8 teams in your league, you get 4. Well, the whole bracket was filled up with league participants that were automatic bids, and we had 2 extra that were the only at-large games, and so it was a shock for Michelle Lazaro. But it is. We knew going into this that we were going to have to up our game some. And I think the ball just didn't fall right. I mean, it wasn't like our volleyball team was bad. They were one of the better teams. And, we It was just the change of the rule. If the rule doesn't change, we're in as an at-large. But, you know, that's the way it goes. We knew that going in, that it was going to be competitive in football. You know, we got to get better. We got to get, you know, we just have to compete a little bit better, and we'll get there. It's an adjustment.
As far as the Desert Sky goes, any hard feelings from them, the league itself?
I haven't talked to anyone. I've been too busy in the MRL, so no. I mean, it's, you know, CIF. It's an interesting policy, the way the league goes and the way they do the whole process, and it's an every 2-year ordeal, and it's very political. It's cutthroat. It really is. People want people in their leagues. They want people out of their leagues. It was an education to me. So I don't think the DSL is upset. They don't have to come to boroughs. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I tried to be as honest as I could with them about what we did and why we did it. Who knows? Who knows what will happen the next time when it goes around, which we'll start that process next year, or actually late this spring for the next releaguing series. So we'll see what happens.
Let's start talking about winter sports. We've got a break coming up here in about a minute. But go ahead and let's start talking, first of all, girls basketball. I know that that's something that you did the last, I believe, 7 years, maybe give or take a year. 9 years? You coached women. I know, well, you were the long-time boys coach before 15. That. Well, time flies when you're just having fun.
Exactly.
And I asked you a little bit ago if you miss being on the sideline, and at the moment, you don't quite feel like you're missing it big time, but that might change as things go. But how is the adjustment after all the years you've coached?
This job is so demanding, and there's always something going on that you really don't have time to think about that, and that's the truth. I mean, there is always something going on at Burroughs. My duties became a lot. When I was gone with basketball, there just weren't things that I had to do because I was gone. So now I do those things, and it's just a matter of, I miss the kids, but it's work. I mean, it's a lot of work coaching, and it's a lot of work being an athletic director, and the two of them was getting to the point where I knew I had to pick one or the other, and Brian, with all the changes, it was time. And so it's fine. I miss the kids a little, but we're okay.
All right, when Robert comes back, we'll talk more about the winter sports. We'll also talk about CIF and maybe breaking the sections down and a few other things. Don't go away. This is Ridgecrest Talk. Back in just a few minutes.
Every time you take a sip,
and we're back. Welcome. Tuesday night, our theme, as always, is sports and athletics. Tonight, Robert Campbell, our guest, the athletic director over at Burroughs High School. In our first segment, we talked a little bit about the fall sports, and Robert just started to talk a little bit about the winter sports. Now, Robert, let's kind of go back towards basketball again. We started to talk about, the hoop this year. Lynn Larson, now the head coach, your longtime assistant. And then on the boys' side, Doug Hayes. And it's early, but how do things look?
Well, you're off your game alone. It's Laura Larson.
Laura Larson, okay.
I'm just messing with you.
Tim and Laura?
Tim and Laura. So we're even. She's doing a great job. She went to La Habra and took third in that tournament. That's the best we've ever done in that tournament. She said the kids got better every game. She said if they would have played they only lost one game. If they would have had that game later on, they would have beat that team, and that team ended up winning it all. Wow. So, and then they played in Tehachapi and did a nice job down there, and then they had a little problem at Ribe Academy down in somewhere in LA. But they're playing well, and Aubrey's playing well, Maddie's playing well. So she's happy. The transition's been made. The kids are playing well. She kind of got on me a little. We don't have a home game till first week in January, but I said, well, I fixed that because my last year I wanted all home. No, I didn't do that. So they're playing well. She's doing a nice job, and she will have some tough teams in the league. Oak Hills is probably the favorite. They have a good team coming back, and so we'll see what happens when we got a couple more games. She's going to the Arvin tournament this Saturday. They got a bye on Friday. So
They talked you into that one again, huh?
well, that one actually works out well because it's a tournament where you don't have to live down there for 3 days. You can go and come back, and then you got the Sunday off, and then you go back and you play a couple games on Monday.
Yeah.
And so it's not a bad tournament for us. And then they can take a little break for the holiday, and then come back and play a couple games, and then they'll get in the league. So it's actually not a bad schedule. The boys, they're going to go to Covina again. They're playing well. They just had a game. They have had a couple home games, played Tehachapi at home and played well. And then they beat Riverside Prep, which was a really good game last Friday. They won by 3. So they started off rough in Roseman, but things have come around and they're playing much better. And so I think they're gonna make a little run for it too here when we get in the league. They have the Covina, and then they'll have a couple games the first week of January, and then league starts up.
Note on Rebay Academy, although they're very, very small, and we'll talk about that in our last segment, how the private schools now dominate, it seems like, when it comes playoff time. But Rebay Academy was about the size of Trona not all that long ago, and now just a few club players and a few club coaches put into different spots, and how things change. But Rebay Academy at one time, really when you thought of athletics, you'd never thought of Rebay. However, as you mentioned off camera, it's amazing how one new club coach in, bringing some people with him, can really change the complexity of everything. I remember it was probably 7 or 8 years ago that Rebay Academy came up here to play Trona in a playoff basketball game, a boys game over at Trona, and their nickname, if you can imagine, is the Fighting Frogs. And the game, I got over there a little bit early after a practice that I had at the college, very tired, and I'm half asleep before the game, and all of a sudden I wake up, and sitting right next to me is this huge green frog. I mean, I looked over there, and he looked at me and, smiled, and I thought, my goodness. But their nickname was the Green Frog. So that's how I remember Rebay Academy. Let's talk about the other sports we have in the winter. Wrestling.
Wrestling has started off well. This is Coach Lazaro's second year, and they went down to Roseman, and they've been down to Palmdale, and they did very well. Got 2 wins at those schools. They were at a tournament this weekend in Lancaster. A couple of the kids ended up, I think, doing very well. So things are, the toughest part of the transition is always the transition year, and that was Coach Lazaro's first year last year. And things have kind of smoothed out a little. We've got some brand new mats up there where he busted his tail and raised a bunch of money, and we ended up getting some brand new wrestling mats, and that's been really good for our wrestling room. And I think right now he's got about 30 kids wrestling, and so things are looking good. They will be going to a tournament this weekend, and things are going well for them. So we'll see what happens. Soccer has started off really well too. Our boys soccer team played very well against Tehachapi last week, and beat the Warriors here. Our girls tied and ended up still a tie in overtime. Again, why we play a tie in soccer, I'll never know, but get the penalty kick in there, but they don't want to do that. So both our soccer teams are doing well. So everyone's kind of getting off to a good start. I mean, it was kind of a bad deal that we lost 2 games. Antelope Valley we didn't get to play, and then we lost our game with Palmdale Academy this week for both our soccer teams due to the rain. How many times do you get rain twice in Ridgecrest and have to cancel 2 soccer games?
No, that's pretty rare.
Hasn't happened in a while. So
I think the KZGN meteorologist would probably adhere to that without question. Hey, let's talk about
Absolutely.
The budget, and I know that always comes up, and I think things are swinging statewide. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel that once was just a few years ago? Even more cutbacks are being talked about. Seemingly, though, as the state goes, things are kind of turning for the good, at least towards the community college level, and I think also the K through 12. But have you seen any hope of getting more money for funding for athletics? Although I know they give you some now, but I know you could use more because fundraising is a big deal.
You know, I was in a meeting probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and one of the things that's really interesting I didn't know is, the budget is always a year behind or a year ahead, and so whatever happens with the state budget takes a full year to be implemented and get into the schools. And so that's why a lot of times you don't see that big change when you see some things where Governor Brown has done some things and things have happened, where in certain areas you see things happen right away and you see improvement right away. And in schools, it's a year before it happens. Just like when bad things happen, it takes a year.
We'll come back. I want to talk more about this, so we'll keep on that thought. We take our second break. Don't go away. More with Robert Campbell coming up right after these words. And welcome back for our third segment. If you just joined us, I'm Tom Heck, Robert Campbell, the athletic director over at Burroughs High School. We've been talking about fall sports, winter sports, and now I've asked him about the budget, which this day and age, very, very important. And Robert has done a good job promoting fundraising over there. Each team has to come up with usually some amount of money to help supplement what they need to carry on with each individual sport. But I kind of left you hanging there. So, anybody said anything to the good as far as more money in the till?
No, they really haven't. I mean, like I said before, our district does a really nice job of trying to support us as best they can. There's just so much money that you have for everything, and again, people don't realize that our sports program is a lot more expensive to run than others because we're out here in Ridgecrest and we have to transport our athletes wherever we go, and it costs money, and so that's always a big ordeal where if you had that money to use for other stuff, it'd be awesome, but it's not. And so we continue to do different types of fundraising. We had our first Christmas tree fundraiser this year where it was pretty highly successful with the teams that were involved, and we're going to continue to do that. The trees we got were good quality trees, and everyone was very happy with the wreaths and the trees. So we're always looking for different things to help our programs out. Right now, if you look at it, we need a brand new pole vault pit. We need some high jump stuff. We need a brand new scoreboard in our gymnasium. I mean, right now, if that thing breaks, you can't order the parts anymore.
Oh,
they don't
boy.
make the parts anymore. So I mean, we could use 50 grand just to take care of that stuff. And so it's a process. There's always things that you need, and it's my job to try and figure out ways to see if I can get the community to help out, and that'll be something I'll be doing after the new year.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about, somebody asked me, they said, I wonder how much it costs to transport a team, gas-wise, in a school bus to places in your league, mainly the Victor Valley, Hesperia area. Have you ever sat down and broken that out? Or
I have it down to the penny. I know exactly how much money we spend in transportation, and we spend between probably around $95,000 a year just in transportation. But one bus ride, usually to a school like Sultana or just one of those schools, Palmdale, it's about $400 to $500.
Wow, just for gas in the trip.
Well, it's gas. You got to pay gas. You got to pay the driver. You're paying for the time the driver has,
right,
and so forth. But yeah, it's about $400 to $500 a trip.
Boy, that's steep. That sure does chew on the budget some.
It is, and it's nothing. It's nothing new. If you go charter, it's triple that because we have to pay for, which we never do. Right now, it's kind of interesting because our transportation has done an awesome job, where in the past, where if someone gets sick or someone's out, they have to figure out ways, because we usually have 2 buses on the road when we go, one for the soccer teams and one for the basketball team. Usually girls in soccer and girls basketball will travel to the same place, but there's not enough room to put them all on the same bus, and they play different times. But when we get in a jam, we use this this company, called Laidlaw or whatever out of Barstow, and they don't have enough drivers anymore.
Wow.
So we're out on our own, and they do a tremendous job in getting our kids where they need to go, and I just thank Allison and all those bus drivers over there, because you never know what's going to happen, and we just have to work together to continue to make it happen.
Let's turn the page to the spring sports. I know that's upcoming, and baseball program, softball program, pretty solid. The tennis program, pretty solid also. Swimming has been a major sport, even though it kind of doesn't get a lot of publicity. There's no pool at Burroughs, so that doesn't help when you have a swim team. But what about your thoughts for the spring, and just talk about, facility-wise, the question of the gym. Will the gym ever be rebuilt, or will there be a brand new gym? And the other question that comes up, what about an on-campus softball facility? Are those things even imaginable?
They are. We've always talked about different ways that we can put get our softball diamonds on our campus. There's land in between Pierce and Burroughs, which is owned by the Navy. There's a lot of different ideas, but everything costs money. But I'd love to put the softball fields closer to our campus. The city does a great job in helping us out, but it'd be nice to have our own softball fields. John Bradley does an awesome job with our baseball field and just keeping it up, and our maintenance staff, our field maintenance does an awesome job, and that field is in the best condition I've seen it in years, and it's just a tremendous amount of time that they put on that field. And a long time ago, a guy told me that you know how good your baseball coach is by the amount of time he puts on his field, and John puts a tremendous amount of time on that field. And so down the line, if we could, my dream would be someday to float a bond where we could redo our facilities, get our track redone to an all-purpose weather track, get an artificial surface on our field. Some people, our football coach doesn't want that, but there's some good and bad to it. I would like to get our softball fields put over at our school. I don't think we'll ever get a pool. That's just such a money drainer. It's costs so much money to keep a pool going. But if we could get softball fields, get our track and that stuff taken care of, that would be awesome. We also need a cardiovascular / weight room. We're working in a weight room now. We have a great volunteer that's come on and working with us, who's our strength coach, Coach George, and he's doing a tremendous job in making a bunch of great changes for our strength program for all our athletes. But we have a facility that needs to be about twice the size. So these are all dreams, and when I win the lottery or when we float a bond, and that would be an awesome thing, but that's all money and politics, and I'm not real good at that stuff. So down the line, that's a dream, and that's some of the things that, we do need.
All right, Robert, in our last about 30 seconds, you were the longtime golf coach also. You missed being out on the greens?
Yeah, golf is awesome. Dave Sappington does an awesome job, and we have a tremendous golfer in Devin Bling, and he's doing really well. He's had some stuff he's done well with this year in Vegas. He had a great tournament, so I look forward to golf. It's going to be a great season again. They went to the semis in the state last year. So,
all right, Robert, thanks again as always.
No problem. Thank you.
Robert Campbell, our guest tonight. More next week. Join us every Tuesday night. We'll talk about the bowl games with Justice Scott next Tuesday night. Have a very pleasant good evening.